Hi, everyone. Welcome to what is essentially the last full week of the fall semester. So I've graded everything that's been turned in as of about 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon. So if there's any late work that's been submitted since then, I may not have gotten to it yet. But so your grades are pretty much up to date. Now you've got one more play to deal with. We haven't done any plays this semester, and we're going back into Volume E, which is the Victorian book. And we're going to do Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest. Now, here's what I love about Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest. It is a major satire. It is hysterical. I have seen live performances of this play, and there was one in particular in Atlanta that I saw that I was laughing so hard I could hardly breathe. So, needless to say, this play holds a very soft spot in my heart. But here's what they're satirizing. By the way, a satire is essentially poking fun at something in a tasteful way. It's not offensive in any way, but it does poke fun in ways that you can laugh. Well, actually, maybe some satire is offensive. But, you think about satire these days, you think about things like The Simpsons and South Park, Saturday Night Live, other very good shows that satirize society in some way. Oscar Wilde did this with The Importance of Being Earnest. A couple things he's satirizing. One is something known as the leisure class, which is essentially a class of people that rose up about the end of the Victorian period, the late 1800s, up into about the early 1900s. People that were wealthy because they were born wealthy. They did not manufacture anything. They did not provide a service. They just happened to be rich. And because of that, they were able to spend money. And in many cases, family fortunes were lost during this period because these wealthy folks would spend all the family money, but they would not generate any kind of income. And in the process, they would get deep into debt. And that's where Algernon, who is one of the two major characters as far as men go, is at. He is very wealthy. He is not making any money, but he sure as heck is spending it and going into deep debt. And in the beginning and pretty much throughout the play, there will be hints at his financial difficulties, even though he can still live the high life. But he's got a servant who he hasn't paid in a long time, and he's hiding from people that actually want him to pay up. So the leisure class is one of the things that's being made fun of. The class system, the whole poor, middle class, and rich is being made fun of to a certain extent. Lady Bracknell is a very, very satirical character. She is so serious about maintaining the social hierarchy as it is, regardless of who actually earns the right to make a little money or who actually is in a position to lose their social status because they're not contributing anything. She still thinks the rich should stay rich, the poor should stay poor, and that's the way it is. And that may sound familiar to you in the 21st century if you're paying any attention. Another theme that's going to be prevalent in The Importance of Being Earnest is going to be identity, particularly name, and even more particularly family name. Again, Lady Bracknell makes a very hilarious comment when she finds out about Jack Worthing, who is the other major main character. Jack Worthing not knowing who his parents are. And she makes the comment about, you mean you were abandoned in a train station in a handbag? Well, I am not going to allow my daughter to marry into a person whose family lineage is a parcel, which of course means, a handbag. So, and these are the kinds of ridiculous statements that are hilarious throughout. These characters say the opposite of what any sane character would say. So, for example, again, Bracknell talking about the parcel, or when she's interviewing Jack and she asks, does he smoke? And he's like, embarrassed, says, yes, ma'am, I must confess I smoke. And she's thrilled because now he has a job. His job is smoking. But also, Bracknell does say things like, she tells Algernon, her nephew, do not make fun of high society. Only people who can't get into it make fun of high society. So she's saying, hey, you were born into it. You're lucky. You should not make fun of this high society because it's just too important. Only people that can't get into it make fun of it. So identity, class structure, satirizing the leisure class. These are all themes that appear in what I think is a hysterical play. And if you pay attention to what the characters are saying, you will understand how ridiculous some of the things they say really are. All right, so that's the paper part. There's a quiz also, about 17 question quiz. You have to read the play, obviously, to get the questions right, but they're not difficult questions. They're questions that I think you'll be able to answer have you read the play. Then the paper itself. This is going to be the longest one. I'm going to actually ask you to give me 5 paragraphs instead of the usual 1 or 2. And I know you know how to write 5-paragraph essays because you've got through English 1101 and English 1102. So 5-paragraph essays are the standard there. We're going to make that standard here. One thing I want to point out as I go through the instructions for the quiz is you still have to have a solid thesis statement. You still have to develop your points. In a 5-paragraph essay, you essentially have your introduction with a thesis statement. You have your 3 body paragraphs, which develop a main point each, and then, of course, you have a conclusion that wraps everything up. I'm not asking that you do research on this. In fact, I would recommend you don't, because what happens when you go to these websites and read what they say is you accidentally plagiarize. They give you a 0 on this, and if you're passing, all of a sudden you're failing because you got a 0 on an assignment that's worth a significant portion of your grade. I would just rely on reading the play and paying attention to it. You have several days. You have until December the 5th at midnight, the stroke of midnight when it turns from the 5th to the 6th to do that. A lot of cases of plagiarism I see are from people going to these websites and thinking that they've put whatever it is in their own words. The problem is plagiarism is not defined as copying per se as much as it is using somebody else's ideas and taking credit for it for yourself. So even if you put it in your own words, you're still plagiarizing to a certain extent if you don't give credit to that source. In fact, it's not even to a certain extent, it's really plagiarism. So read the play closely, find ways to answer the questions. In fact, I would look at the questions in the paper ahead of time and then make notes in the margins or make notes on a piece of paper or however you take notes, and then write your papers there. I'm also going to ask, and this is actually written in your assignment, you should really have a direct quote per body paragraph. To me, it's one thing to explain something, but if you can use the exact words of the author or the exact words of the character that's speaking, then you can actually find that to be more solid evidence than just putting it in your own words. So you could say, well, I don't know, Algernon talks about Bunburying, and you'll understand what Bunburying is when you read the play. It's a pretty funny concept, actually. He talks about Bunburying to Jack, and Jack is horrified. But if you put the exact quote from Algernon where he explains what Bunburying is, and then Jack says, "Oh, well, I don't do that," and he's like, "Oh, well, you're the biggest Bunburyist I know, Jack." If you do something like that, it actually gives your paragraphs a little bit more credibility because you're taking it straight from the play rather than trying to summarize it or something like that. So I'm going to ask that you do that too. So that's it. This is the last play we're going to read, the last paper you're going to write, and the last quiz you're going to take. There is no final exam per se. This importance of being an earnest thing is your final, essentially. I look forward to seeing what you have to say. I look forward to your reactions to this play. I think that if you go into it with an open mind, you're going to find it absolutely hysterical in the same way that some people might find, say, South Park or Saturday Night Live or something like that hysterical. And I will have another video for you next Monday, but for now, this is the end. The finish line's in sight. We are almost there, and I look forward to finishing this semester up with you, and I'll talk to you again next Monday.